Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
The all-new FreshBooks makes ridiculously easy accounting software that's completely transformed how freelancers and small business owners deal with their day-to-day paperwork. It's been redesigned from the ground up and custom built for exactly the way you work. Get ready for the simplest way to be more productive, organized, and most importantly, get paid quickly. The most important thing for everyone listening is that getting started on FreshBooks is extremely simple, even if you're not a numbers person. Actually, especially if you're not a numbers person. FreshBooks is offering a 30-day unrestricted free trial to my listeners on Knowledge for Men. To claim it, just go to freshbooks.com/men and enter Knowledge for Men in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Again, that's freshbooks.com/men and enter Knowledge for Men in the How Did You Hear About Us section. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with New York Times bestselling author, Dr. David J. Lieberman, the author of his most recent book, Never Get Angry Again, The Foolproof Way to Stay Calm and in Control in Any Conversation or Situation. So this book is more of a holistic look at the underlying emotional, physical, and spiritual causes of anger, and also offers a practical guide to what the reader can do to gain better perspective. Dr. Lieberman, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
All right. And Dr. Lieberman, we start off the show with some sort of quote or some sort of saying that's helped you along your journey. And if you could share something from the book, that would be fantastic.
Great. That's an easy one. And that is as follows. Mental health requires an allegiance to reality at all cost or consequences.
All right. And if you could break that down for us, what does that mean? How can that help and benefit someone?
Sure. Basically, what does it mean to be emotionally healthy? Sanity is synonymous with perspective, my ability to see, accept, and respond to my world. And the healthier we are, the more willing we are to see what we don't want to see, accept what we'd rather not accept, and respond responsibly. And if you want to infuse yourself with a greater sense of emotional health, it requires us to face our responsibilities and our obligations and move through them and use them as opportunities for growth. But if we refuse to accept the pain of those responsibilities, we end up hiding. And that hiding ends up injuring not only our happiness, but our emotional health as well.
What hiding from what?
Excellent. Because you know what? One of the best self-help books, the 1980s, started with the line, life is difficult. And quite frankly, it is. But the fact that life is difficult doesn't mean that it can't be richly rewarding and pleasurable. But if we're not willing to face some degree of pain, and the opposite of pleasure is not pain, it's comfort, really getting to the pleasure of life requires effort, requires work, requires pain. But a person who's not willing to face that pain and sort of hides away and doesn't want to face reality will end up not just in pain, but in suffering.
So let's throw some examples out there so the audience can relate to when they're not willing to face pain. Is this a conversation? Is this at work?
Right.
Like, what does this look like?
Good. It can be anything. It can be, that toothache that you've got, and it's not going to go away by itself. So the responsible person will go ahead and get it taken care of ASAP, and they'll feel great when they'll be out of pain. The not responsible person that will hide from the pain, say it'll go away, and so on, will end up suffering up until the point that they've got to go to the dentist, and now maybe they need a root canal, or they need a crown, or they need something more significant. And it could also, as you said, be in a conversation. You have to have a difficult conversation with somebody. So whether it's a boss, a coworker, a family member, whomever it is, you're putting it off. And is it possible within the realm of reality that the problem could go away? Sure. But 99 times out of 100, it just gets worse. And not only that, but you feel less good about yourself when you avoid reality. But when you act responsibly and assert yourself in a healthy way, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a conversation, whether it's tackling a job or an obstacle, you end up feeling much better about yourself.
Yeah. The way I'm relating to this as well is doing the things that you know you need to do. So whether like I'm trying to work on my next book right now, and it kind of is painful to just sit down and as you know, you've written so many books, or going to the gym. Like there's this level of discomfort that I have to get ready. I have to get there. I have to work out. I have to breathe really hard, and I just want to just relax at the end of the day. But I'm getting that if you're not willing to face the pain, then this is irresponsible of your goals.
Yeah, it's irresponsible of your goals, and even you're right, and even more so, it's irresponsible to your life, because in order for you to maximize your potential, you're going to have to endure pain. And again, pain and pleasure go hand in hand. There is nothing we can achieve that has any degree of pleasure that doesn't require some effort. But a person who's unwilling to put in effort and endure some discomfort, even for something they greatly desire, is never going to come close to maximizing their potential, in which case they're going to become angry with themselves, and then they end up taking it out on the rest of the world.
Okay, yeah, and we'll definitely dive into that as the main point of this whole interview here. So it seems like accepting that pain is a part of becoming great, becoming good, excelling. Pain is a part of growth. I think first accepting that, because I feel like we want to avoid pain. Like, oh, there's pain, I need to go another way. It's like there's pain down this path, let's find another path. And what happens is you're not going down any paths because you're trying to avoid pain, which is what we're talking about. It looks like it's going to be a part of every path.
That's right. And that's just it. There is no escape. There is no destination. Look, the opposite of pleasure, again, is not pain, it's comfort. Real pleasure is found in doing things that are meaningful. But if you look to escape pleasure and you look to escape pain, de facto, you're not going to do anything that's meaningful. You're not going to get any pleasure. Now you've got comfort, and comfort is really an escape from life. And there's only so long you can sit on the couch and watch television and eat potato chips before you go mad, because there's no real meaning, so there's no real pleasure. So in order to be let alone accomplish goals, but in order to be emotionally healthy, yes, it does require, doing what's uncomfortable. And from your own life, whenever you do something that's difficult, whenever you sort of challenge yourself, you feel great and you grow as a result. But when you shy away from that opportunity for growth, you end up feeling less good about yourself, and then you justify it, and that just moves you further and further away from reality.
Comfort is an escape from life. And with this, I want, if we continue that sentence, if we're trying to escape life, is that why alcohol and drugs are so popular today? And depression being so high as it is today?
That's right. You're raising a great point. And to be clear, look, comfort is a means to an end. I'm all for recharging the battery, sharpening the saw, all those good, metaphors to relax and unwind. But the question is, at what point does relaxation and unwinding drift into self-destruction? And you bring up a apt point, and that is that when I turn to drugs, alcohol, endless entertainment, excursions, things that pull me out of reality, because I don't want to face reality. Temporarily, yes, it is enjoyable, but I end up having to pay the piper afterwards, and I end up feeling less good about myself. I may feel guilty, I may feel ashamed, and I'm behind the 8 ball when I re-enter life. So whenever you talk about taking a vacation, taking a break, and recharging yourself, it has to be responsible so that when you re-engage reality, you're not left in a worse emotional, spiritual, physical place than when you left.
Mm-hmm. Yes. As you're talking, I'm thinking like, wow, some of the greatest things that I've done, even just in the last 5 years in building this Knowledge for Men brand, they're typically the ones that required the most amount of discomfort. The things that I was not ready to do, I didn't feel comfortable doing it. I felt completely out of my element, whether it was writing a book or putting on my first seminar or creating an online course or shooting video or even starting this podcast. Those were all very uncomfortable situations that I really just one foot in front of the other and just kept moving forward and learning and failing.
Right. And that's just it. And you made that decision when you just were no longer willing to tolerate mediocrity or feeling stuck or, just being on that treadmill, and you made a decision. And quite frankly, if we're not doing something that makes us uncomfortable each and every day, we're really not growing. And, you'll have some people that will have a very long to-do list, and they'll put stuff on there even that they've already done just for the satisfaction of sort of crossing it off. But that one thing that really needs to be done, number 20, doesn't get done, and then ends up getting pushed to the next list, and so on and so on. But if you're able to do what's uncomfortable and do things that are painful, even though they're right and responsible, maybe embarrassing or uncomfortable, the feeling is immeasurable because you've just experienced genuine emotional and spiritual growth.
Yeah, very powerful. What are questions that someone listening could ask where maybe they're not sure if they're like living in comfort? They're like, oh, I do challenge myself from time to time. Like, they're not really like, drinking, doing drugs on that end of the spectrum, but maybe being out of touch with reality isn't as black and white as that. Maybe it's not they're watching TV, just eating potato chips, like black and white. But what are just some questions where someone's like, maybe I am living in comfort, but they're not aware of it?
Excellent. So first is that you're right. It's not binary. It's not always black and white. Certainly if you find yourself, homeless with a bottle of vodka in one hand, you've clearly, tipped the scales. But, it's whenever sort of we experience those flashes of perspective, where sometimes, we see that larger reality, whether it's you drive by a serious car accident, or you visit a friend in intensive, care unit of a hospital, or you go through a difficult situation, or even it could be a positive thing also. These flashes of perspective allow us to sort of see reality clearly and reorient our priorities. And in those moments, it's a great opportunity to ask ourselves am I doing what is fulfilling? Am I doing what I'm really supposed to be doing here? Do I find myself satisfied? And in these moments is an opportunity really to be honest with ourselves. And quite frankly, facing what has become of our finest intentions can be quite painful, is to find ourselves 30, 40, 50, 60 years, 70, 80, 90, whatever it is, years old, and say, wow, you know what? I used to have dreams. I used to have goals. And to give ourselves a chance to reevaluate that now. And it's not about, throwing everything out and starting new, but within our current life, how can we begin to bring more satisfaction, to bring more happiness into our day-to-day?
When we ask those questions, they sound very inspiring. It makes me come alive. Those are questions that I think it sparks our imagination into all kinds of different possibilities. And then on the other end of that spectrum, I think some listeners might be thinking, why can't I just live my life the way I want to, and just, maybe I don't want to do those big things, but I enjoy just living a simple life.
Good. And again, look, living a simple life is to be lauded. It's a fantastic, there's nothing, simplicity is one of the hardest, most complicated things to achieve. Simplicity is fine. And there are some people that get here's the thing, Andrew, is that we all have values, right? What we think is important. And if we're living in accordance with those values and we're congruent with them, we'll feel good. If we're not, we won't be. So if you have somebody who says, I believe it's important to spend time with my family, with my children, and, work on my relationships, but they end up spending 24/7 at the office, clearly they're not going to be happy. So you just want to make sure your values are congruent with your goals. And at the same time, make sure your values are yours and you haven't sold yourself out or sold yourself short because you want to accommodate someone else's perception of you.
Yes. Very good. Making sure your values are yours. I think that is just the core of being a strong, grounded man, is knowing your values, and the hardest part, living in alignment to what you value and really living that out. Now, on to your book here, Never Get Angry Again. I think we've probably brought up topics and interesting points from the book, but why I thought this was an important conversation, because anger, it's not, even the title of this podcast episode, it's probably going to be Never Get Angry Again or something like that. It's not going to be as sexy as some of the other ones, but I do think that it's a very important conversation for men. I know from my experience growing up, I'll use my dad as an example. He's just this really nice guy, but he would go from one end of the spectrum to the complete other end and just go I almost want to say berserk, like just massive anger, throwing things, yelling, and it would just happen so quick. And I know that the impact that had on my family, And I think that if he had worked on some of those anger issues, that I think it would be a completely different, type of family that he would have today, because parents got divorced, and it really spiraled downhill from, I believe anger was a core part of that. And so something that probably he never really thought was a big issue growing up. But I feel like there's just a couple points in our lives where if we don't control our anger, it can completely throw our life in a different direction.
For sure. And you're getting to the core of why it's so important to work on your anger, because it can be grossly destructive to our emotional health, to our relationships, to our success in life. If you think about, what we could accomplish if we, and being anger free also isn't about being meek or about, running away when you're supposed to face. It's about living in reality. Ultimately, what it comes down to is perspective. When a person has perspective, it means they see clearly what matters and what doesn't. And most of the things we get upset about really don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's very true. Why would we take something that doesn't matter and blow it up?
The $1 million question, and that is about perspective. In the heat of the moment, we don't have perspective because of this thing that we call the ego. And the ego imagines sort of like the false self. The real self is our soul, our conscience, the real essence of the person. But the degree to which I'm not willing to acknowledge my faults and failures and face my reality, responsibilities, and obligations, my ego sort of compensates like a seesaw. When one goes up, the other goes down. So this ego sort of takes over, and the ego blocks perspective. So whenever I feel out of control, whenever I feel emotionally threatened, my ego is going to engage and I'm going to get upset. And we can see how, no one ever walked away from a conversation and said, I wish I would have gotten angrier. I would have been able to handle myself so much better. When a person becomes angry, it literally makes them unintelligent because the brain releases a chemical, a hormone actually called cortisol, which interferes with our ability to process information. So we become angry, and then sometimes we'll double down and go berserk and blind fury. And we literally at some point are no longer in control of ourselves. And when we lose control, we lose respect for ourselves, and other people around us lose it for us as well.
Wow. That probably explains why when you're talking to someone who's so angry, like logic does not work at all.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like,
for most of us.
It's like talking to someone who doesn't speak, your language, and you think if you just enunciate clearly and speak loud and slowly, they're gonna understand you. Can you please? They don't. If they don't speak the language, they don't speak the language. If somebody is in that blind fury, their ego blocks perspective. There is no reason, there's no rationale, there's no logic, and there's no point that's going to get through.
So let's say me and my partner are arguing and we're both angry at each other. And so in this situation, it makes sense when you keep going back and forth because no one's listening.
That's right. You're taking turns getting your point across, trying to win the battle. But in a conversation with somebody or in a difficult spot, when you see somebody who maintains their calm, who's in control of themselves, there's nothing more attractive. There's nothing more inspiring than to look at somebody who keeps their head when everyone around them is losing theirs. And again, the opposite of anger, is having a sense of trust and a sense of calm, which not only does amazing things for emotional health and relationships, but also can go to the core of charisma. Somebody who is in control of themselves when the situation is chaotic and tumultuous is very, very attractive, and it is very, very inspiring.
So what are I almost want to say primal, like why there must be some reason why we get angry and we lose control of our we're not really listening, or we lose control of some of that logic. Like, what is the benefit of anger? Like, what good does it serve humans?
Beautiful. Great. So anger actually comes from the fight or flight response. We don't become angry unless we are either in pain or scared, and really being fearful is a type of pain. They're both opposite sides of the same coin. So what anger does is, physiologically speaking, I mentioned before, it releases cortisol. It also releases adrenaline. It gives us the illusion that we're in control because it makes us, physiologically speaking, more powerful, and we feel less vulnerable. So that's sort of the primal reason for it. It sort of, instigates the ability to feel more in charge, when really the reality is with every anger-driven moment, we spiral less and less out of control.
Okay. So it seems like anger is used for survival.
Yeah, but again, it's deceptive because it is the ego, the false self, that convinces us, look, when do people get angry? It's because ultimately, you take a step back here, let's look at the larger picture. We want to be connected. We want to feel loved. We want to know we're lovable. We want to have that connection with other people. So if my ego exists because I'm not willing to accept aspects of myself that I don't love, that means then that if you're rude to me, you're disrespectful, you criticize me, mock, embarrass, whatever it is, I feel that pain of disconnection, and that's when anger comes out. So ultimately, it's my ability to be able to connect with you and to know that I'm accepted and loved and lovable that makes me feel grounded and okay. But any indication, any feeling that my emotional connection is being threatened, that's when I'm going to lash out.
Mm-hmm. Yes. How can someone express anger in a way that will leave them not feeling powerless? So if someone else is angry, it seems like they're stepping into their kind of alpha attitude. And if you're not stepping up to that, then maybe you feel like, oh, am I stepping down? Am I not really a strong guy here? Am I not as masculine? But how can you do it in a way where you actually are strong and masculine, but you're not playing that game?
Excellent. So look, to be a strong person means that you're in control of yourself. No one respects, no one listens to, no one trusts, no one likes somebody who is not in control of themselves. So my ability to express how I feel calm and respectfully is going to scream that I am a powerful person. When I lose control of myself, it doesn't matter how loud I scream, people are going to recognize I'm powerless. Because the only reason I'm screaming is because I feel like I don't have any control. So there are fewer things more empowering than conveying how you feel respectfully and calmly. And when you're in that angry space, I encourage people not to have a dialogue then. Like you were talking about, you and your partner, whenever you are, in a place where neither of you can really see the other person's position clearly. And that's really what a shift in perspective means. It means I take my ego out of the way. I can see from where, from where you're looking, your vantage point. If my ego is engaged, I'm only focusing on my pain, not on yours. So it's not a productive conversation. So rather than let that relationship deteriorate and have that conversation spiral into something much less healthy, you take a break and you revisit it when neither of you are hungry, tired, or cranky, and you can have an intelligent conversation. But when we're in that angry space, it's very, very difficult because we feel powerless and we want to exert power, and our ego convinces us that the way to do it is by becoming angry and trying to seize control.
So anger in a way is you're trying to control the situation to go in your favor and to prevent yourself from getting hurt.
That's right. You're trying to look, the more I'm in control of me, the less I need to control you. The less I'm in control of me, my ego is going to engage. And now the more I need to control you and my environment, my circumstances. But that kind of person is ego oriented. They're almost narcissistic, and they're very, very unfun to be around.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on like the typical anger management techniques, like breathing, counting to 10 and breathing, or like punching your bed, or like some sort of positive affirmations? What are your thoughts on those?
Good luck with that. You know what? It's for anyone that's ever been angry, meaning you're a human being. I've not found too many people, with the exception of really counting and breathing to calm yourself down, because there's a strong physiological connection between breath. But first off, the research shows punching a pillow is useless. It's useless in a number of ways. First off, emotionally, it ends up causing you to unconsciously justify your anger. And secondly, you end up with 4 times the possibility of actually a heart attack when you sort of vent your aggression through physical way. It's just hazardous. But they simply don't work. I mean, they simply don't work, which is why you have a lot of angry people out there who are unable to control themselves. ultimately you have to go to the core of anger. And when you understand why you become angry, because you feel vulnerable, and you're in a conversation with somebody who's yelling at you, and you focus on their pain instead of yours, and there are just simple ways to do that, you'll find that you remain anger-free. But if I focus on my pain, then I can't help but fight against my own nature and fight against my anger.
What would that look like, focusing on their pain instead of my pain? Maybe you could throw up an example.
Great. So look, let me ask you a question. Let's say you're walking along and someone bangs into you on a busy street, right? And you turn around feeling a little bruised, a little scared, a little annoyed, and you see it's a person in a wheelchair or otherwise handicapped trying to get by. Where does your anger go?
It just goes away. I don't feel as angry.
That's right. It dissipates because you see the person's fragility, you see their helplessness, their vulnerability. You can see on the outside exactly what's happening. So when you're in a conversation with somebody and they're yelling or screaming this and that, and you're able to recognize that they're only doing this because they don't feel loved, they don't feel connected, maybe they had a lousy childhood, it's their stuff. You don't have to make other people's stuff your stuff. But if you're consumed in much the same way that if you're in physical pain and you have a toothache, that's all you can think about. You can't focus on anyone else's pain. If you're in emotional pain, if you're only thinking about your own stuff, it's very, very, very hard to see the other person's pain. And that's what empathy is. Empathy is your pain is my pain. There's a connection that's born out of that. Sympathy is I feel bad you're in pain, but I'll go back to my Frosted Flakes. It doesn't really change me. But my ability to feel empathy and to feel your pain requires me to move my ego out of the way.
Mm-hmm. I got a little confused. You said don't make others' stuff your stuff, but then empathy sounds like that's what that is.
Wow, beautiful. Let me retrace my words and do a better job of clarifying. When I say don't make other people's stuff your stuff, meaning is that our ego convinces us that how somebody treats us is a reflection of our self-worth. If somebody yells at me, somebody screams at me, it means that maybe there's something wrong with me. But it's a corrupted conclusion. How somebody treats us is a window into their own emotional health. It says everything about that person and nothing about us. So in that respect, I don't make their stuff my stuff. When I talk about feeling someone's pain, that means that I recognize it's their pain. In other words, I don't have to feel bad about me because you're having a bad day. I can feel bad for you. I can feel your pain as if it were mine, but make no mistake, I'm not letting you make me feel less good about me because you're not in a good space.
Right. So in that situation, would you recommend trying to dig into their day, like what happened, like just trying to get them to share and open up? What would you recommend in a situation like that?
Yeah, I can see why you're great at what you do. Excellent. Yes. And that's exactly it. You want to see if you can first judge favorably and see, what kind of day are they having? In other words, we know that people don't know what is always going on in our lives, in our mind, in our day. And if you can just assume that they're just having a tough day, or they just had a rough childhood, or they're just, whatever it is, look, put it this way, when you're in a great mood, and you're feeling magnanimous and you're feeling just top of the world, you treat the whole world with respect. And when you're feeling in a less good mood, you become a little bit more stingy with your love and respect. But it's got nothing to do with the world around you and has everything to do with about you. In much the same way, how people treat us, again, is a reflection of their stuff. It's nothing about us. The problem is, if I don't like me, right, I can't imagine why you would like me. If I don't respect me, I can't imagine why you would respect me. So now the person with low self-esteem has a hard time giving love and respect because you'll only give what you got. At the same time, have a hard time receiving it, in which case then I feel isolated and I'm cut off. And this person is indeed in pain.
Very good. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. So what I'm getting here is anger versus anger typically always fails.
Well, yes,
you're not really going to get a good solution. So it's almost you got to recognize that and be aware. Like, oh, hey, look, she or he is combating me with anger, and I'm being angry, and we're not listening to each other at all. So that situation is not going to be successful until one of us can really start getting better perspective on the situation and having more empathy for the other person.
That's right. That's right. And that can only happen when, really, certainly at least one or ideally both are just calm down. And that's what perspective is. It's a shift. It gives you more time. You see more clearly and you can have an intelligent conversation. But when you're both in that engaged ego state, it is pointless and it's only destructive to try to have a dialogue.
Yes. Yes. So now what if there's not another person involved? Like I'm angry with myself. I'm angry with something that I did. I'm angry with where I am at in my personal development or my level of success. I'm comparing myself to other people. So it's about me and there's really not other people involved. Yeah.
Good. So that's right. And it makes no difference whether there are different dynamics with other people, but the core is the same. And that brings us to a distinction between guilt and shame. Guilt is, I've done something wrong and it was something that I feel bad about. Shame is my behavior makes me feel less good about me. Now, shame is healthy, as is guilt, meaning it's an opportunity for a do-over to try to make things right. And it gives us the ability to reface reality. But if I'm not willing to face the pain the first time around, and now I feel guilty or ashamed that I didn't step up to the plate, and I double down, I justify, I rationalize, I minimize any, number of weapons the ego has in its tool belt, I'm going to further remove myself from reality and become less and less healthy. But the reason why self-esteem is at the core here is because if I get 2 red lights in a row, or I don't get the job that I want, or the electric door doesn't open up for me, whatever it is, whether it's another person or whether it's God or the universe, I'm saying is that I'm not loved. If God cared enough about me, then I would go ahead and get this job, or I'd go ahead and get this relationship, or I'd go ahead and get this parking spot. And the inability for me to feel whether it's God's love for me or the universe's love for me or other people's love for me requires me to love me. Because again, as you said before, if I don't love me, I can't imagine why anyone or anything would. So the inability for me to love myself corrupts my ability to feel the love. And the reason why I don't love me is because I'm acting in a way that's irresponsible. I'm acting in a way that's below my spiritual and emotional level. I'm acting in a way that is not me. And that's what shame is, the feeling that we've fallen beneath our level. And that stain of shame can only be corrected by trying to make things right and move forward. And if you look at, the 12 steps of the 12 steps program or any type of the 12 steps program, all those steps have the core of humility, recognizing we're not the center of the universe, we're a human being. It's okay. You fall down, you make amends, you move forward. And it's all about taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it seems like the anger with yourself has a lot to do with guilt and shame. And so working on that and moving forward and understanding that it's okay, you made a mistake, but that's a part of being human. That's a part of life. That's a part of the path, actually, that's a part of actually reaching success. And, it's time to move forward and take the lessons.
That's right. That's right. There's an old biblical saying that a righteous person falls down 7 times and gets up 7 times, meaning that in order to be great, it's not that if you fall, you'll get back up, but falling is a prerequisite. It's required for greatness. You're going to stumble. There's no one that has ever achieved anything of significance that hasn't gotten beaten up along the way. And it's not about falling down. And people who will wrap themselves up in guilt and self-pity and shame in this blanket and just stay in their comfort zone, they're only doing it, they're not being noble, they are being selfish because they don't want to face the pain that's required in order to make things right and to move forward. But there is nothing more invigorating, nothing more empowering, nothing more inspiring from the minute we decide to take responsibility for the quality of our lives.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, did you see the Elon Musk, the SpaceX, the rocket launch?
Yeah, fascinating.
It was fascinating, but there were so many times that it failed, and that each time it failed, it was hundreds of millions of dollars that just blew up in front of his face.
That's right. That's right. And anyone look at Thomas Edison is a great example. It's been rumored that he tried 10,000, iterations of the light bulb before he hit on the incandescent light bulb. Abraham Lincoln had failure after failure after failure until he was elected president. And in any industry, in any field, in any area, we always find that it's the success goes to the person that simply is unwilling to give up.
I 100% agree. It's just the level of resilience that it takes to keep going. It definitely is the answer. I just think having that resilience is the key to being able to stay in the fight and to keep moving.
Right. And that resilience is gained. Look at it this way, is that you only want to invest in something and someone that you love, right? No one would put time, money, energy, and heartache into anything they didn't love. So the more I love me, the more I accept me, the more willing I am to invest in me. That means I'm willing to sacrifice some short-term pain and effort for the long-term gain. But if I don't love me, I'm not willing to put effort into me. So I'll have the hamburger and the French fries and the Coke today because I don't care about me tomorrow. So my ability to delay gratification and want to invest in the long-term me requires some degree of self-esteem. And it's a chicken and the egg, because my willingness to do it, whenever we invest in ourselves, whenever we treat ourselves with respect, whether it's emotionally, financially, spiritually, with relationships, however it is, it ends up infusing us with a greater sense of self-esteem, because we send a message to our unconscious that says one thing, and that is, I care about me.
Do you think that's the place to start, is self-love?
Yes, I do. I've been speaking to people, for decades. And it's end of the day is you could talk to you blue in the face, but it ultimately requires a person to move forward. And it does require a degree of self-acceptance. And in childhood, I don't know too many people that haven't gotten beaten up and bruised and battered a little bit, either literally or metaphorically, in childhood. And we acquire this sort of stain of false shame that I'm not good enough, I never measured up, and we walk around with this sort of lacking, which is why self-acceptance is so important, because if I accept me totally, the good, the bad, and the ugly completely, there is no failure. The only thing that keeps me scared from moving forward is thinking that I'm not good enough, that I have to be everything. But if I acknowledge that I don't have to be everything, I don't have to be everything at all. I just want to be something. And it's okay if I fail in this area at this time. That doesn't mean that I'm a failure. And self-acceptance means that it doesn't approve of everything I do. It means that who I am right here and right now is good. I'm a good person. I've failed in the past. I've done things which I'm not proud of. But right now, moving forward, I'm going to do the one thing that I'm empowered to do, and that's take responsibility. And when we choose to take responsibility, we choose our own destiny.
Very well said. It's like we have everything we need to succeed, but when we wake up, we remind ourselves of all the reasons why we don't. It's like, it's all there. Right. But great. Let's dive into the knowledge round. Just going to ask you a few last rapid fire questions here. So are you ready for the knowledge round?
Fire away.
The working world has changed. With the growth of the internet, there's never been more opportunities for the self-employed. To meet this need, FreshBooks is excited to announce the launch of an all-new version of their cloud accounting software. It's been redesigned from the ground up and custom built for exactly the way you work. Get ready for the simplest way to be more productive, organized, and most importantly, get paid quickly. The all-new FreshBooks is not only ridiculously easy to use, it's also packed full of powerful features. Create and send professional-looking invoices in less than 30 seconds. Set up online payments with just a couple of clicks and get paid up to 4 days faster. See when your client has seen your invoices and put an end to all the guessing games. And I'm excited to announce that FreshBooks is offering a 30-day unrestricted free trial to my listeners. To claim it, just go to freshbooks.com/men and enter knowledge for men in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Again, that's freshbooks.com and enter knowledge for men in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. My first question for you here is, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost and unsure of their purpose?
Great. First, join the human race. It's normal and natural to question, why am I here? What am I doing? And so on. And first is to have self-compassion, not pity. A pity party is you wrap yourself up in this blanket of self-pity, and it keeps you from moving forward. Compassion is, you know what? Life has been challenging. Life has been hard. Life has been difficult. And I've tried the best I can, but right now I'm going to accept and acknowledge that I'm in pain. And that's okay. That's healthy. Right now is something that's painful. I'm not going to deny it, but I'm also not going to judge it or condemn it. I'm going to be in that pain. And then before it turns into pity, I'm going to make some decisions. I'm going to ask myself, what kind of person would I be if I didn't have the problems that I have? What kind of person would I be if I felt totally loved completely as a child? What kind of person would I be if failure were impossible? Andrew, we ask ourselves questions about where we want to move in life, but we ask them already confined to a box. We need to open up that space and really allow for the field of possibilities.
Yeah, very good. What do you think is holding most men back from becoming stronger, more grounded men today?
Fear of that our facade will be exposed. Fear that somebody is going to think that we're foolish, or we're going to be embarrassed, or we're going to be uncomfortable. It all comes down to being afraid that we're not going to be loved, we're not going to be accepted, which is why if you accept you and know that you're doing what's right and responsible and have a true moral barometer with a true north, then you can move through the world with this knowing invincibility. And it doesn't matter what people say or think or do. If you know what you're doing is right and it's morally sound, then you are invincible.
Very good. What would you say are 3 of your most influential books that have helped you on your journey, and briefly why?
Well, that's a good question. I suppose it would be too obnoxious to list my own books, right? So
I think so.
I'm going to go ahead and say number 1, easy, the Bible. I think that's, a great place to start for a lot of truth. I'm going to say number 2 is Dale Carnegie's classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that's a fantastic book. And number 3, I'm going to say, I say another one of his books. Maybe I'm taking the easy way out here, but he's got another great book. It's a classic called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. 3 great books.
Yeah, they're very good books. And now, what would you tell yourself if you had 60 seconds with 25-year-old yourself, David here, and if you had 60 seconds with him and knowing what you know today, what would you tell him to do? What would you tell him not to do?
It's so interesting because I that's a question that I encourage people to ask, and I asked it myself often. And it's interesting how many times I get different questions or different things that I tell myself.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they probably come back to the same one, and that is that you have to trust that you're here for a reason. You're here for a good reason. Is that you have to trust that good will come when you do good. And if you want to take the easy way out and you're looking for shortcuts, you're always going to find yourself empty-handed. If you want to feel good, you have to do good. If you want to if you set out simply to feel good, you'll end up feeling lousy. So ultimately, the ability to feel good about ourselves requires us to make good choices. And I would tell myself to make as many good choices as you can, regardless of the pain or effort involved, and you will enjoy the fruits of those labor.
Very good. Would you say that is your philosophy for success right there?
Yeah, I do think so. And that is, if you want to feel good, you have to do good. And that's something that we can empirically see from our lives every day. You make good choices, you feel good about yourself. You make less good choices. Doesn't matter how you rationalize it or justify it. You ends up gnawing away at your conscience and eats away at your self-respect.
Yeah. Now, what's exciting you today? Like, what's getting you out of bed in the morning?
That's easy, other than 6 kids who want to be fed.
Yeah.
That'll get you going. I'm really just excited about the book. Thank God the feedback I've gotten is tremendous. It is a book that I really like to think introduces something new into the conversation, as you said in the beginning about anger management. And it's not just about managing your anger. It's about not being angry at all, which brings your emotional health to an entirely new level. So I'm just very excited about sharing that.
Very good. And for the listeners, you can check out his book. Go to Amazon. Never Get Angry Again, Dr. David J. Lieberman. He's also got a number of other great books that he's written, so please check those out. There's a lot of good stuff here. And do you have a website that you can plug here?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it. How embarrassed. I'm such not a technologically savvy guy. I think it's Dr. David Lieberman. .com. And also I have a new Instagram I just got on that. Can I go ahead and share that?
Sure.
That's Dr_Lieberman. Very, very memorable, right? Dr_Lieberman. That's the account there on Instagram.
All right. This has been a fantastic interview. I think a very important conversation for men to hear. I think there's just Of course, we get angry from time to time, but I think there are a few key times in our lives where we can get too angry and it can really change our life in a dramatic way. And so having these tools and being more aware, I think can really help us get in more control, be more grounded in those situations where we could likely explode and do something that we would, regret for a very long time.
For sure. Thank you, Andrew. You've got a fantastic show. Wishing you lots and lots of success with it.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll